Whatever authority it has right now, it has, and no one's trying to take that away. Moving on to section 6.
No, solicitor actually needs to have open. Thank you, Mr. President.
Moving on to section 6, the solicitor had asked for clarification. This is if the project is sold at a later date. And I just clarified that we provide documentation reasonably establishing, which I'm sure it will, in writing, that whoever the assignee is, whoever the project has been sold to, has assumed the obligations. And the solicitor also asked if we could provide language, which I have, indicating that any assignee, any person who the project is sold to in one way, shape, or form, has at least the same, if not better, financial strength than the developer, and also has itself or will engage third parties that have appropriate industry experience to be able to own, maintain, operate, take care of a renewable energy project of this type and scale.
Mr. President, through you. Solicitor Iglesias in number 6, it basically says, I'll read the whole sentence. Any such non-affiliated assignee shall, A, have net worth or overall financial strength greater than or equal to the project owner, and B, have at all times engaged third parties that have experience and expertise that is consistent with industry standards to operate and maintain a renewable energy project. Is this the town standards? Is this the town standards? Tough question, right? Can you say it?
Yeah, you're saying industry standards versus the town standards?
I'm looking at the red line.
Yes.
The red line.
That was language I asked to be put in.
You asked that?
I asked that to be put in.
Okay.
Because I wanted an assurance that if the project is sold, that somebody who takes it over has this financial stability of this operator and has the industry expertise to continue to function. That's really my language.
Yeah, which we discussed.
It's put in by Mr. Rossini, it's drafted by Mr. Rossini, but it was at my request.
We had that discussion.
And I just add, Mr. Vice President, that's in addition to whatever the town's ordinances are.
Right.
It's not in place of, it's in addition to.
Thank you.
In section 8, there had been a reference to a prior attorney. I simply replaced it with my contact information. And the only other change is in Exhibit A, which is simply the meets and bounds legal description for the property, which was provided by our title counsel.
I have a question. Can we, so next time, like after he goes through, we can talk, because I have a change I would like to see made in section 8 in terms of contact info.
Okay.
So can I say that now, or?
It would be easier if we finish the tax stabilization.
Yeah, that's what I was just asking if you wanted to. Yeah,
I think you want what you want.
oh, you want me to do it now? Oh, okay. So I noticed in here, right, it says town solicitor, Town of North Smithfield, but yet for the project owner, it says, oh, sorry, page 4, section 8, notices. It says, attention Marquis Pasquale, and it says, you, Stephen F. Rossini. I'm assuming, I don't know, but if green development ever goes away and this is transferred, I would think that that language should say, instead of attention Marquis Pasquale, it should say CEO, president, or principal owner. And we shouldn't put any names in this, just like we're doing with the town. Because what happens if you're not the legal representative down the line?
Sure, so if you read the second to last, and that's a completely valid point, the second to last sentence in that section.
Yeah, it says such notices shall be addressed.
So practically, if Green fires me tomorrow and hires a new lawyer, then the new...
It should be legal representative.
They'll send you notice, yeah. In terms of the reason why there are specific names for the developer and not for the town is the town asked us to take out specific names with the idea that over time the town may have...
I just don't want to see us chasing a ghost 30 years from now, that's all.
Yep.
In the event you guys aren't in charge of it.
So typically the way that would work is had no notice been given, then the town's obligation under the contract is to send notice to whoever's listed in the agreement. So if the developer changed an address or changed a responsible person for notice and didn't give the town's notice, they do it at their own cost.
Yeah, I just want the language to reflect it.
I have a question.
So if I can, I apologize, so you asking for a change in the language?
Yeah, I would like to see a change to, if our language is to whoever's on the project owner, I think we should just be clear here instead of names. So,
But I think the last sentence covers that, Council.
I'm fine.
The second from the last sentence.
I'm happy to take the names out if the council would prefer.
no, I mean, that's fine. That covers it. I just wanted it to be clear, that's all, because I don't.
They provide notice.
I think in this case, we know who the owner is at this time.
Right, so that's...
We need to put that name in there, that's who it is. If it's sold, they need to, or it's transferred, they need to make notification, in which case, a new one of these would be typed up with the proper information.
No,
That's correct.
Just written notice. if you look at the last sentence of that paragraph, if any of the addresses of giving notice ever changed, the written notice to the other party. Do you see that second from last sentence, number 8? That sentence is intended to say, if Mr. Bassini has changed, they have to send us written notice. If Mr. Di Pasquale changed, he has to send us written notice. That's what it means. Otherwise, we send notice there, that's valid notice. That's pretty common. This is a pretty common mechanism in most contractual agreements.
And I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that there would be an update somewhere, that I just don't want that to get lost.
Council, I agree. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just want to agree with it because, limited liability companies come and go. And we really need to have that language in there. That's all. I agree with the council.
I apologize, you were asking for a change in the language? Or?
I'm not sure. Councilor, are you?
I mean, if I'm going to defer to the solicitor for the legal opinion, so if that language suffices that has to be updated, does that mean that it has to get updated at the clerk's office? Like, where is that updated? Who's receiving that information?
It's supposed to be go to the, if they were changing it for Mr. Bassini, they're supposed to send notice to the town, and the town, it says the town at 1 Main Street, and also the administrator and the solicitor. That's what I'm reading. So that's what notice would need to be given.
Okay, so if we're doing it because it's at this time, we have to put names of the project going in the legal record, and then the back end of that is sufficient to capture that, I'm fine with that.
If you want to just add something that says, it says that they have to send notice. I don't know what else.
I can't tell you that this type of notice provision is in virtually every contract in this.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that it was tracked, that's all. Like,
Yeah.
we'd be able to get it.
Yes, we may not be at 1 Main Street. So much
That was
longer.
Yeah.
that was my question. The 1 Main Street,
I would
the
think we have to
mail,
update
When
our.
our
we
address
receive.
when our address changes,
we have to
we
notify
send them a
them.
letter.
Okay.
And we update that. That's what that language means.
Okay.
It's a perfect
So
example.
both
We're
ways.
changing now.
Both ways.
Okay.
Both ways. But I understand the concern. I'm not minimizing your concern. I'm just saying.
I want to make sure it's clear, that's why. Both of them.
Any other questions on the tax stabilization agreement before I move on? Okay, thank you. On the development agreement, on the first page, just one change, which is the date. On the second page, section 1, I just added a reference to the tax stabilization agreement since the two agreements work hand in hand, and I deleted the reference to real estate taxes for the reasons we discussed. They're all dealt with in section 5 of the tax stabilization agreement. In section 2, the way the agreement was originally drafted, it was a sort of a formula as to what the payment would be. That changed at the meeting 2 weeks ago. Since now it's a fixed amount, I simply removed that language, made a reference to section 2.1, which is the manner in which the payment might be made, and added a specific dollar amount. And I'll take a moment at this point, and I'll just give you the dollar amounts per project. In fact, I'll give you the next ones too. So GD Iron Mine 1, which was 4.05 megawatts AC. By my math, that allocated to 10.54% of the overall project, and the payment was $30,302.50. GD Iron Mine 2 was 5.85 megawatts AC, which accounted for 15.24% of the overall project, and the dollar amount was $43,815. GD Iron Mine 3, 2.10 megawatts AC, 5.4% of the project, $15,726.25. GD Iron Mine 4, 6.60 megawatts AC, 17.19%, $49,421.25. GD Iron Mine 5, 2.70 megawatts AC, 7.03%, $20,211.25. GD Iron Mine 6, 3.45 megawatts AC, 8.98%, $25,817.50. GD Iron Mine 7, 4.20 megawatts AC, 10.94%, $31,452.50. GD Iron Mine 8, 6.30 megawatts AC, 16.41%, $47,178.75. And finally, GDIM Mine 9, 3.15 megawatts AC, 8.20%, $23,575 for an aggregated total of 38.4 megawatts AC and $287,500. Moving back to the development agreement, section 2.1 was added, and it gives the town the option to either have the dollar amounts paid.
Mr. President, may I,
Of course,
can we go to 2, one-time development payment?
Yes.
In here, I believe, I'm sorry, it's 2.1. Am I jumping ahead of you?
just getting to that section.
Thank you,
Mr. Vice
thank you,
President.
I'm sorry.
So this was changed to, at the town's option, to have the payment made directly to the town or to the town solicitor as escrow agent, which for various reasons may be more desirable to the town, perhaps to get more bang for the buck.
That was my question, can you explain that?
Sure. The reason is that a payment directly to the town can't be taken back. A payment to the solicitor in escrow hasn't been received by the town, and it may allow for more flexibility for the construction budget and the bang for the buck the town gets out of construction services if it takes that route. It is the town's option. If the town wants it directly paid, it doesn't matter to the developer. It may be in the town's interest to consider the escrow payment, but it's up to the town, not the developer. Just gives you the flexibility. Alternatively, if the town has the option to instead ask the developer to do the renovations that were discussed before, which without going into great detail, as I know we discussed it a lot, general contracting services, including assistance in obtaining any Rhode Island Department of Environmental permits, to remodel and upgrade the concession and restroom facilities at the sports fields currently called the Paul Joyce Athletic Fields, located at the high school, at the developer's cost, not to exceed the amount of the development fee. The cash would be paid. It would remain in escrow until the services were approved reasonably by the town in good faith. And to the extent that the services at the developer's cost were less than the amount of the development fee, then the difference would go to the town. It would not come back to the developer. And I think that captures fairly accurately everything that was discussed.
So I'm clear, Mr. Rossini, we are going to submit a plan. At what point, we're promised concession stand, restrooms, sanitary facilities for men and women. Sorry if I can still say that. Two different restrooms. Who is going to review this or approve it, do you know?
So the way it's drafted, Mr. Vice President, is that the developer would provide a plan to you for your approval. And I think the reason for that is the developer, having been in the business for 30 plus years, may have a better idea of what the best way to give the town the bang for the buck, as opposed to the town going out, hiring someone, and perhaps coming up with a budget that's far in excess of the development fee. At the end of the day, the developer, I think I've stated at every meeting, is really indifferent what they look like. It's just trying to make sure the town gets the most bang for the buck. The developer, as you may know, has extensive experience in public projects, including schools, would probably have a pretty good idea what might work. But at the end of the day, the town gets to decide, as long as it stays under the amount of the development fee, or if it goes over and the town wants to pay that difference, that's up to the town. But I think that's why the developer suggested it might be easier for the developer to prepare something to present it to the council for approval.
For construction services.
Correct.
Yeah. I don't serve as the planning board member, nor do I review these things, but hopefully councilors will agree that this should be an issue with the town planning board to look over these plans. The town building inspector, all of the above, to meet the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management requirements, as well as forecasted services for sanitary waste out there. Sorry, I'm not speaking as a planning board member, but this all has to go before a planning board with a definite plan, a scope of what has to be done out there.
Sure. My suggestion would be, of course, it's up to the council. My suggestion would be that the developer provide the plans for at least, high-level approval, and then, of course, it would have to go through all of the town's normal permitting process, whatever they may be, whatever point of contact or points of contact or levels of review the town council wants. the developer really doesn't care.
Yeah,
That's up
we
to
don't
you.
act as a board of review. The planning board has to do that.
That's
Thank you.
the developer's indifferent. Wherever the town directs the plans to go, that's where they'll be.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Moving on to the next page, section 3.1. This was a change that I had requested. The developer will reseed the property with native grass in accordance with all of the town's applicable ordinances. I just took out the restoration obligation since the removal of planting of trees that we discussed last time. Section.
You're familiar with our land development subdivision regulations about restoration?
In a very general sense.
I'm not sure that this addresses it. I'm not quite sure.
It says in
I'm not
accordance with
gonna call
all
out the
applicable
town.
laws, ordinances, and regulations. So whatever they are, without having to state them all, then the developer would have to comply.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Section 3.2 captures the subject of the last vote, which was the decommissioning escrow, which was a total of $1.2 million, $600,000 to be held in a restricted account, which was the town's request, as opposed to an escrow to fund the cost of removal should the developer or the developer's successor not remove, and a surety bond basically to fund the same thing. And I added language to be very clear at the solicitor's request, with such bond to be in form and substance and issued by a surety reasonably acceptable to the town. So we've simply been waiting for tonight's vote so that I can then take this to the developer's insurance agent and get a proposed form of bond so that the surety will understand exactly what obligation they're bonding over. I think the remaining language was just being clear that it could be the project owner or successor, whoever it is, the obligation to decommission is the same. If the decommission does happen, then the escrow cash comes back to the developer, and if, or project owner, excuse me, and if not, it can be consumed by the town for satisfying decommission. Section 4, just same change, just references to developer.
Sorry.
No, not at all.
So you just said to be consumed by the town, right? Can you repeat the last sentence?
Sure, I said both the surety bond and the cash escrow are there in the event the developer or the project owner does not perform at that time. To the extent they perform and is decommissioned properly in accordance with the agreement, then the cash is released and the bond is irrelevant. No claims
So
ever
this
made.
captures if everyone walks away and the town's responsible. That's what this section to decommission.
Correct. Section 4, just again references to the developer or project owner as the case may be. And I believe that there was one other substantive change. A new section 10 was added on page 5 at the request of the solicitor. Since there are 9 separate projects, the solicitor wanted to clarify that the 9 development agreements are integrated, and then added a specific sentence to make it clear that basically no one's trying to shortchange the town any money, and the town has to get a total of $287,500 in the split that I described previously. And the only other change is, again, just adding the meets and bounds description in Exhibit A, which came from title council. Happy to answer any other questions about the revisions that I made to the development agreement, but I think they're fairly clear. Solicitor and I worked hard on them, and I do believe that they captured all of the changes that the council had requested 2 weeks ago.
Mr. President, through you, Mr. Rossini on page 3 of this document, 3.3. The town will not be responsible for any costs and expenses to remove all above ground improvements of personal property made or placed on the leased land by the project owner. Solicitor, is this strong enough to protect us? If 20 years from now, I think Councilman Mosher will be here, I won't be here. I hope we make it another 20 years. Speak for yourself, Councilor Harrison.
President, I think, again, the way to approach this is the performance bond is out there. If they don't perform, it doesn't become the town's obligation to do this, even if they don't perform. If they don't perform, then it's still going to be whoever's out there's job to do it. But we have the added protection if we want to perform to use the money for it.
I agree with the solicitor's characterization.
Of course you would.
But the question came
Of
down.
course you would.
But the question comes down to making sure there's adequate amounts to withdraw from to hire. That's the other issue here. It's not.
I have no opinion.
Right. No, it's not that. It's and this came up the last time. It's not the town's. Even though this is saying it's not the town's responsibility to decommission, but the issue that I think we argued the most time was that making sure that we had enough funds to hire somebody that could be commissioned in an appropriate manner. I still think we're short. I don't agree with the bond still. I think it should have been all cash. And when we get to that discussion.
Yeah, well, when we get to that discussion, Council, it was called a hybrid bond. We do not have the information how this bond system works. I'll repeat what I said the last time. We tried to pull a bond on the other side of town for construction of sewer and water. It went nowhere. Yeah, I'm concerned. I have some concerns about this. But we'll get there.
No other discussion? The changes that was done?
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. President, there is other discussion, if I may. Is this the appropriate time to discuss the decommissioning amount per megawatt?
We should probably approve the thing.
Again,
We approved the language, we can't revisit it.
well, let me just say this. You can talk about it now, you can obviously do that now, right now. The way I prepared the agenda was, this represents what you wanted done. If it's what you wanted done, I recommend you vote to approve it. And then item 5, you can make any changes you want. If they're minor changes, I think Mr. Rossini can make them in this section right now. But if it's going to be a major change, just so we don't get confused, I just don't want to confuse the record, not because I'm trying to somehow, trying to make sure that if this represents what you wanted before you, then I recommend that you vote on it.
Mr. President, through you to the town solicitor, I asked this question maybe an hour ago at this point, right? Under old business, bottom of the page, 1, discussion by council vote or other action on revoke, ratification, or motion made by Mr. Swensky and Mr. O'Hara. So at this point,